morning had arrived like a silent prelude to chaos, a fragile moment hanging in the balance before the storm of emotions and revelations. I sat alone in my dimly lit office, the soft hum of fluorescent lights and the distant murmur of the early city life creating a backdrop that felt both isolating and strangely serene. My paperwork lay scattered before me, a tangle of numbers and names that suddenly seemed insignificant compared to the weight of the news that had shattered my calm just moments earlier. I had learned, almost by accident in the quiet solitude of the dawn, that my beautiful mate was pregnant. The revelation hit me like a tidal wave, a blend of elation, responsibility, and an inexplicable foreboding that churned deep within my soul. As I absorbed this unexpected joy, a dissonant note pierced the silence of my thoughts. Out of nowhere, my beta's voice, steady and urgent, cut through the haze of my internal musings. "Alpha, Mr. Mitchells and his family have just arrived." The sound of his voice snapped me back to reality, and for a brief moment, time itself seemed to slow. I could feel my heart quicken, my mind racing through the implications of their sudden arrival. Mr. Mitchells, a name that carried both respect and a hint of trepidation, had requested to join my pack only months ago, a request that was as unexpected as it was disconcerting. Known for his prowess as one of the finest warriors in his former pack, his decision to transfer into our ranks was not a matter of simple logistics. It carried with it a mystery and an underlying tension that I couldn't yet fully grasp. I responded quickly, almost mechanically, "Be right there," and terminated the mind link. Yet, even as I prepared to leave my secluded sanctuary of thought, the juxtaposition of my mate's joyful news and the ominous undertones of Mr. Mitchell's arrival gnawed at me. In that moment, every fiber of my being trembled with a cocktail of emotions: excitement for new life, anxiety over looming uncertainties, and a deep inner struggle between the instincts of a protector and the vulnerability of a man who had long guarded his heart. Rising from my desk, I glanced around the room as if seeking reassurance in the familiar clutter. A collection of mementos, old photographs, and tokens of past victories that now seemed to whisper secrets of bygone days. Each item, bathed in the early morning glow, felt like a silent witness to my battles both on the field and within myself. But today, the real battle was not external. It was a war waged within the quiet corridors of my mind. I was caught between the promise of a new beginning and the encroaching shadow of an unknown threat. Every step I took towards the door echoed with the uncertainty of the day ahead. Outside, the chill of early spring mingled with the promise of warmth, a contradictory reminder that life, in all its beauty and brutality, rarely offered clear answers. The arrival of the Mitchell family was not merely an administrative matter. It was a portent of change, a potential disruption to the delicate order of our pack, and perhaps a harbinger of secrets waiting to be unearthed. As I hurried through the empty hallways, my thoughts spiraled. I questioned what it would mean for our future. Was this new addition to our pack a sign of strength, a necessary evolution, or a rift waiting to tear us apart from within? Each question was a spark, igniting both hope and dread. I could almost hear the silent whispers of fate, urging me to brace for a confrontation that might reshape everything I had built. The weight of responsibility pressed heavily on my shoulders. My mate's condition, the impending arrival of new life, and the unresolved tensions with Mr. Mitchell's all converged into a single pulsating moment. I felt as if I stood on the edge of a precipice, where the delicate balance of love, loyalty, and survival teetered precariously. The darkness of my past, the scars of old betrayals, and the ceaseless quest to protect what was dear to me merged in a heady blend of resolve and trepidation. In that fleeting span of time before I stepped into the uncertain light of the corridor, I made a silent vow to myself. No matter what secrets the Mitchells carried, no matter how tumultuous the path ahead might be, I would safeguard my mate and our future offspring with every ounce of strength I possessed. The bond we shared was Sacred. A promise written in the very marrow of my bones. A promise that even the coldest threat could not shatter. And so, with the ghostly remnants of sleep still clinging to my eyes, I pushed open the door. The early morning mist greeted me like a shroud, blurring the line between reality and the dreamlike uncertainty of what was to come. As I stepped out, the world around me seemed to hold its breath, mirroring the stillness of my soul, waiting for the next chapter of this unfolding mysterious saga to reveal itself. In that charged moment, I knew that this was no ordinary day. It was the beginning of a transformation, a stirring of fate that promised both unimaginable beauty and a darkness that lurked just beyond the edges of the light. And as the path ahead stretched out before me, cloaked in the enigmatic whispers of destiny, I braced myself for the unfolding of a story that would change everything, for better or for worse. The chill of early morning still clung to my thoughts as I made my way through the corridors, my mind ablaze with questions about Mr. Mitchell's unexpected request. His transfer into my pack wasn't just another administrative move. It was a ripple in the fabric of our closely guarded world, a disruption that stirred a maelstrom of emotions within me. I remembered the day he first contacted me, a terse, almost disembodied message that spoke of honor, prowess, and a silent plea for acceptance. Mr. Mitchell had been one of the fiercest warriors in his previous pack, a reputation that commanded respect. Yet his decision to leave a pack where he had clearly earned his place was peculiar. There was something unsettling about his choice, as if he carried a burden too heavy to stay rooted in one territory. The whispers among the higher ranks hinted at an odd history. The Mitchell family had moved from one pack to another with alarming frequency, never settling long enough to form the deep bonds that typically define our kind. Over the span of just a few short years, they'd been a part of nearly 5 different packs, a fact that gnawed at me like an unspoken secret. I tried to reconcile these conflicting images in my mind. On one hand, Mr. Mitchell was a warrior of unparalleled skill, a man whose presence could tilt the balance of power in any confrontation. On the other, his family's turbulent past, the ceaseless shifting of alliances and transient loyalties, cast a long, ominous shadow. Why would a family with such a shaky history seek refuge in my pack, renowned as we are for our strength and unity? Was it a bid for redemption? A desperate attempt to secure a future they could not otherwise grasp? Or perhaps there lurked darker, hidden motives beneath their polished exterior. Lost in these swirling thoughts, I recalled the first time I caught a glimpse of the Mitchell family. We had arranged to meet in a neutral clearing, a space where the natural order of our world held its ground. There, standing with an air of unyielding authority, was Mr. Mitchell, a bulky, formidable man whose every muscle seemed sculpted for battle. His presence was imposing, his stance rigid as if prepared to defend 1,000 secrets. Beside him, almost as if in silent compliment, stood his mate. Her eyes were cold and calculating, glimmering with a hint of something dangerous. There was a darkness to her gaze, a predatory spark that made it clear she was no ordinary partner. Together they presented a portrait of formidable strength, an unspoken promise that they were capable of immense power, and perhaps equally immense cruelty. Then, my gaze was drawn to the most striking member of the group, a little girl whose appearance contradicted the hard edges of her guardians. She stood there, almost ethereal in contrast, with long ebony hair cascading around her delicate face and eyes that shone with an otherworldly blue intensity. Her skin, pale and unblemished, seemed almost like porcelain, a fragile beauty in a world of hardened warriors. Despite her tender age, there was an aura of mystery around her, as if she carried the weight of untold stories and secret destinies. Every glance in her direction stirred conflicting emotions within me, a deep protective instinct coupled with a simmering sense of foreboding. My mind churned as I tried to piece together the enigma before me. The Mitchell family's constant movement between packs suggested a life marked by instability. Could it be that they were fleeing something, or perhaps pursuing an elusive goal? The little girl's piercing blue eyes seemed to hold answers that defied explanation, as though they witnessed a future of both light and darkness. I couldn't shake the feeling that her presence was not merely coincidental, that she was the key to understanding a deeper mystery that threatened to upend everything I knew about loyalty and honor within our kind. As I watched the family from a distance, a part of me admired their resilience. They carried themselves with an air of defiance, their posture unbowed despite the whispers of distrust that clung to their legacy. Yet, another part of me was haunted by a forewarning, an instinct born of years of guarding my pack's sanctity. I wondered if accepting them would introduce a fissure, however slight, into the unyielding unity that had been the cornerstone of our strength for generations. Every step I took closer to them was weighed down by the silent burden of these questions. My inner conflict was palpable, a tug-of-war between the pragmatic need for strength and the caution born of past betrayals. In my heart, I knew that my decision would have far-reaching consequences. Integrating the Mitchell family into our fold could either fortify our ranks with their unparalleled combat skills or expose us to the vagaries of a history filled with mistrust and hidden agendas. In that moment, as the Mitchell family gathered in the clearing, I made a silent vow. No matter the undercurrents of mystery that swirled around them, I would not allow uncertainty to endanger the sanctity of my pack. I would scrutinize every gesture, every word, and every fleeting expression for clues to their true intentions. The allure of their strength was undeniable, but so was the risk they represented. I was determined to navigate this precarious juncture with both wisdom and caution, ensuring that our unity would not be compromised by the shadows of a past that refused to be forgotten. The world around me seemed to hold its breath as I prepared to address the Mitchells. In that heavy, suspense-filled pause, the boundaries between trust and suspicion blurred, and I felt the weight of destiny pressing upon my shoulders. The path ahead was uncertain, shrouded in layers of mystery and potential peril. Yet I knew that every step forward would reveal a fragment of the truth, a truth that might one day bind us together or tear us apart in ways we could never imagine. The atmosphere grew heavier as I approached the meeting spot, a set of worn stone steps that led to an old, ivy-clad building. There, the Mitchell family had already assembled, their silhouettes stark against the pale morning light. As I stepped closer, every detail seemed amplified. The air was thick with tension, as if the very ground beneath our feet was aware of secrets long buried. On the steps, Mr. Mitchell stood rigidly, his imposing frame dominating the space. His eyes, cold and calculating, flicked over me with a subtle but unmistakable challenge. Beside him, his mate exuded an aura of silent menace. Her gaze was sharp and penetrating, as if she were assessing every minute detail of my presence. Their expressions were not warm greetings but guarded assessments, each look carrying a weight of unspoken history and concealed intentions. Then there was the little girl. She lingered slightly behind, her presence both enchanting and disconcerting. With ebony hair cascading softly around her delicate face and piercing blue eyes that seemed to shine with an inner light, she was an anomaly, a beacon of innocence within this storm of guarded hostility. Yet, her eyes betrayed a depth far beyond her tender age, hinting at untold stories and hidden sorrows. I could see my beta, Alex, standing just a few paces behind me, his expression as impassive as ever. His eyes, though not openly critical, conveyed a quiet skepticism. He had witnessed enough in our line of duty to trust his instincts, and today, his unwavering, unimpressed look spoke volumes. Alex's silence was a stark contrast to the charged atmosphere surrounding the Mitchells, a subtle reminder that not everyone was as easily swayed by appearances or the allure of potential strength. As I greeted the family, my voice attempted a calm, diplomatic tone, yet I couldn't shake the chill that crept along my spine. Every word exchanged felt weighted with an unspoken tension. Mr. Mitchell's reply was curt, his tone measured, as if each syllable were a calculated move in a dangerous game. His mate's eyes, cold and distant, followed my every move with a level of scrutiny that made me question if I was being dissected like a specimen under a microscope. The silence that ensued was almost unbearable. In those few moments, the stone, steps, and the ancient walls around us seemed to echo with the ghosts of past alliances and betrayals. I sensed that beneath their calm exterior, the Mitchells harbored complexities that could either fortify our pack or undermine it entirely. Their presence was like a double-edged sword, promising strength on one side and peril on the other. I could almost feel a magnetic pull of foreboding as I exchanged glances with Alex. His eyes, though unreadable, held a silent warning. Something was off. The family's behavior was too measured, too rehearsed, like actors on a stage performing a well-practiced scene rather than genuine representatives of their lineage. There was an eerie precision to their movements, a rhythm that suggested every gesture and look was preordained by a script written in shadows. The little girl's timid movements did little to ease my suspicions. Instead, her subtle glances and hesitant steps betrayed a fear that seemed disproportionate to her age, a fear that resonated with the aura of uncertainty surrounding her guardians. I found myself wondering if she was merely a pawn, or perhaps the key to unlocking the hidden motives that lay behind the Mitchells' constant transfers. Every flicker of her eyes, every slight tremor in her small frame, whispered of a deeper mystery waiting to be unraveled. Meanwhile, the air around us seemed to pulse with unspoken threats. The Mitchells exchanged looks that were laden with secrets, as if they were silently agreeing on matters that no outsider was meant to understand. I could feel my pulse quickening, my senses sharpening in response to the underlying danger that lurked beneath their composed facades. It was as if the very space between us was charged with electricity, a prelude to an impending storm of revelations. My beta's quiet presence beside me was a constant reminder that I was not alone in my unease. Alex's steady, almost stoic demeanor provided a counterbalance to the escalating tension, yet his silence only deepened my own doubts. His calmness, a byproduct of years of experience, did little to dispel the gnawing feeling that we were about to step into a vortex of hidden agendas and potential betrayal. I couldn't help but notice the subtle but deliberate body language of the Mitchell couple. The way Mr. Mitchell's hand rested on his mate's shoulder, almost possessively, hinted at an undercurrent of control and dominance. His mate's barely perceptible frown when our eyes met suggested that she was constantly weighing our worth, or perhaps our potential threat, with clinical precision. Their silent communication was like a covert language. Each look, each slight nod or shake of the head, was a coded message that I was only beginning to decipher. As the encounter unfolded, a realization began to crystallize within me. Accepting the Mitchell family into our pack could either be our salvation or our undoing. Their undeniable strength was tempered by an unsettling unpredictability, and the delicate balance of trust and suspicion hung in the air like a fragile thread. I knew then that my decision in this moment would reverberate far beyond the meeting, on these ancient steps, potentially altering the fate of my entire pack. In that charged moment of first encounters and uneasy impressions, the Mitchell family had already woven themselves into the tapestry of my thoughts. Their presence was a conundrum wrapped in enigma, a puzzle that beckoned me to look deeper into the shadows of their past. And as I stood there, caught between duty and the relentless call of my instincts, I could only brace myself for the unfolding mystery, knowing that every answer might just lead to more questions, more doubts, and an ever-deepening sense of foreboding. In the soft early light of dawn, the world seemed to awaken slowly around me, yet everything felt off-kilter, a jarring discord in what was once familiar. I was just a child, trying to navigate the routine of a school day that felt increasingly heavy with neglect and loneliness. My breakfast, once a moment of simple pleasure, had turned into a rushed, half-forgotten ritual. I sat at the kitchen table with a bowl of cereal that had grown cold and soggy, my mind already adrift in darker thoughts. The aroma of toast and jam had been replaced by the bitter tang of indifference, a silent reminder that even the smallest comforts were fading away. At school, the hallways that used to buzz with laughter and playful chatter now echoed with a dull monotony. I shuffled from class to class, my thoughts wandering like clouds obscuring a once bright sky. The day dragged on, each lesson a blur of numbers, words, and images that failed to capture the wonder I once felt. Instead, a heavy gloom settled over me, a fog of isolation that seemed to color everything in muted shades of gray. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was missing, a piece of my world that had inexplicably vanished. Then, in the midst of the dreary routine, everything shifted. During a quiet moment in the hallway, I caught sight of her, a little girl whose presence was as unexpected as it was magnetic. She appeared almost like a mirage, a beacon of innocence in a sea of dull routine. Her ebony hair cascaded down in soft waves, contrasting sharply with her delicate, porcelain-like skin. But it was her eyes, strikingly blue, shimmering with a light that defied the ordinary, that truly captivated.
Me?
They held a depth of emotion and mystery that belied her tender age, a silent promise of stories untold. My heart raced as I watched her from a distance, curiosity mingling with a growing sense of protectiveness. Who was she? And why did she seem to carry an air of quiet sadness amid such undeniable beauty? As I tried to piece together the puzzle of her presence, I couldn't help but compare her to my own world, a world of routine and neglect, where even the simplest moments were tainted by the absence of warmth and care. Throughout the day, the contrast between my everyday life and the mysterious arrival of this little girl became increasingly stark. In class, while the teacher droned on about facts and figures, my thoughts kept returning to the fleeting glimpse of her face. I wondered if she felt the same isolation that weighed on me, if her life, too, was touched by a hidden sorrow that no one could quite understand. With every passing minute, the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach grew, a sense that, somewhere deep inside, I needed to protect her, to shield her from the chaos that had become my own existence. During recess, while my peers played carefree games, I sat quietly under a large oak tree, lost in thought. I remembered the mundane rhythm of my mornings, skipping a proper breakfast, the hurried walk to school, the constant murmur of disinterest from those around me. In sharp contrast, her image burned in my mind like a vivid dream. I could almost see her standing alone on the playground, a small figure surrounded by a swirling vortex of confusion and unspoken emotions. I wondered if she too felt trapped in a world that didn't quite know how to care. The more I thought about it, the more my own heart began to mirror the tumult of a storm. There was something profoundly stirring about her, a call to my protective instincts that I couldn't ignore. Even as I tried to focus on my lessons, the thought of her lingered like a soft whisper, urging me to reach out, to break free from the oppressive monotony of my day. I felt a burgeoning desire to know her story, to understand what had brought such a radiant yet troubled soul into my line of sight. Was she lost? Had she been forgotten by someone who should have cherished her? And if so, could I be the one to make a difference? Every moment of the day was punctuated by this internal battle, a conflict between the desire to retreat into the safety of routine and the pull of a deeper, more urgent need to act. I began to imagine scenarios where I could reach out, where our paths might cross again under different circumstances. In these fleeting daydreams, I pictured us sharing secrets beneath the shade of that ancient oak tree, our laughter mingling as we discovered a friendship that could banish the loneliness of our separate worlds. Yet, as the final bell rang and the day slowly faded into the cool twilight, a bittersweet resolve settled over me. I knew that something fundamental had shifted within my young heart. The mundane had been shattered by her presence, and with it came the stirring of emotions that I had never known before. Emotions that spoke of both vulnerability and strength. I resolved then that I would not let her vanish into the background of my chaotic world, Instead, I would hold on to this newfound sense of purpose, this deep, unyielding urge to protect and care for someone who seemed to carry a piece of the light that I so desperately needed. As I walked home through the hushed streets, the weight of the day mingled with a cautious hope. I knew not what tomorrow would bring, or how this mysterious encounter would alter the tapestry of my life. But one thing was clear. The arrival of that little girl had stirred something profound within me, a call to guard not only her innocence, but also the fading remnants of my own lost world. And in that promise, I found a flicker of determination, a small burning light that promised to guide me through the unfolding chaos. The moment unfolded in a heartbeat, a scene that seemed to slow time itself. As I stood there, absorbed in the internal storm of questions and uncertainty about the Mitchells, the tranquility of that tense meeting was abruptly shattered by a sudden commotion. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of the little girl, her delicate form faltering as she tripped on an uneven step. The sound of her small body colliding with the hard stone echoed like a distant drumbeat, and in that instant, every instinct within me surged into action. Without a moment's hesitation, I lunged forward. My feet pounded against the cold, hard steps as I raced toward her, my heart pounding with a mixture of fear and fierce protectiveness. Every muscle in my body was primed for action, a powerful force guided by an unyielding tenderness. I reached her just as she began to slide, her fragile frame teetering on the brink of a painful fall, and wrapped my arms around her with an urgency that left no room for doubt. The impact was soft, yet forceful. A collision of care against chaos. I held her tightly, feeling the rapid thump of her heart echoing my own. Her small body trembled in my embrace, and I could feel her fright radiating through the warmth of her touch. Gently, I murmured soothing words, my voice low and tender. "Hey there, it's okay. I've got you now." I could hear the tremble in her whispered reply, a fragile sound that carried both relief and lingering fear. Time seemed to suspend itself in that moment, the harsh morning light softening as my focus narrowed to the delicate soul cradled in my arms. The rough edges of the stone steps faded away into insignificance, replaced by the warm, comforting presence of a bond that was just beginning to take root. I carefully eased her from the brink of the fall, laying her gently against my chest, so she could feel the steady rhythm of my heartbeat. A silent promise that I would be her shield against any harm. Her eyes, wide and glistening with tears, locked onto mine as I continued to whisper, "You're safe with me, little one. I promise." The sincerity in my voice, imbued with both strength and compassion, seemed to ease the tension in her tiny frame. With each passing second, the initial shock of her fall began to dissolve, replaced by a tentative sense of trust and comfort. I could feel the warmth of her small hand instinctively reaching up to touch my face, as if seeking reassurance that everything would be all right. In that brief yet powerful exchange, our worlds had collided. Two lives, seemingly disparate, now entwined by fate and compassion. I could sense the silent gratitude in her gaze, a fleeting moment of vulnerability that spoke volumes about the hardships she might have already endured. It was in that quiet connection that I realized the true weight of my role, not just as a warrior of my pack, but as a guardian of those who were too small to fend for themselves. "What's your name, sweetheart?" I asked softly, my words carrying the gentle cadence of a promise to protect. The little girl hesitated for a moment, her voice barely audible as she replied, "Elena." The simplicity of her name belied the complexity of the feelings swirling within me. It was as if, in that small utterance, she had handed me a key to a part of her world, a world filled with both innocence and silent sorrow. I smiled, an expression that softened the hardness of my earlier resolve. "Hello, Alana. I'm Elijah." I introduced myself, ensuring that my tone conveyed both familiarity and unwavering protection. "You're safe now, and I promise I'll always look out for you." Each word was a pledge, a vow forged in that very instant, and destined to bind us together in ways I was only beginning to understand. As I gently lifted her up and steadied her on the steps, the surrounding atmosphere seemed to transform. The earlier tension gave way to a quiet intimacy, a secret conversation between two souls that transcended the clamor of the world around us. I could feel the residual tremors of her fear gradually subside as I continued to speak in hushed tones. There, little one. You're okay. I've got you. Always." The cadence of my voice, rhythmic and steady, echoed against the ancient stone as though sealing a promise in time. The other members of the Mitchell family, along with my beta Alex, watched in silence from a short distance. Their expressions were a mixture of curiosity and wariness, but for now, all that mattered was the connection being forged here on these time-worn steps. In that vulnerable moment, the boundaries between protector and protege blurred, replaced by an unspoken bond built on the simple, yet profound, act of rescue. In that charged and transformative encounter, the chaos of the world around us momentarily paused. I held Elena close, feeling her small, trembling form against my chest, and I vowed to shield her from the darkness that had so long haunted our paths. With every soft whisper and gentle caress, I laid the foundation for a bond that, I hoped, would one day dispel the shadows and bring light to even the most troubled of hearts. In the quiet aftermath of the rescue, as the echoes of hurried steps and whispered reassurances faded into the stillness of the early morning, I found myself cradling Alana in a tender embrace. The world around us had shrunk to the small space between our intertwined hands and the soft rhythm of her shallow breaths. For a moment, time itself seemed to soften, allowing our souls to speak a language beyond words, a language of empathy, protection, and an inexplicable connection that defied our brief acquaintance. Her eyes, still glistening with the residue of tears, met mine with a vulnerability that struck deep within me. In that fleeting glance, I saw not just fear, but an ocean of unspoken pain and longing for comfort. The delicate crinkle at the corner of her eyes spoke of past sorrows, and I instinctively understood that my role was no longer that of a mere bystander. I had become her guardian in that moment. "Elena," I murmured gently, my voice a soft cadence that mingled concern with quiet assurance. "I promise I'm here for you. You're safe now." She hesitated, as if testing the sincerity of my words, and then, with a timid nod, she allowed her small hand to rest against my cheek. The contact was light, almost as if she feared the weight of human touch, but it ignited something profound within me. Each tender caress seemed to affirm an unspoken bond that was being woven in real time, a tapestry of shared vulnerability and the promise of protection that stretched far beyond the immediate moment. We exchanged quiet words, our dialogue barely, more than whispers. I'm scared," she admitted, her voice barely audible, fragile like the wings of a butterfly. "I don't know what's happening," she continued, the uncertainty in her tone resonating with the chaos that had momentarily disrupted her world. I leaned in closer, careful not to startle her, and replied, "I know it's scary, but you're not alone anymore. I'll take care of you no matter what." My words, simple yet laden with promise, hung in the cool air, creating a bridge between her trembling hope and my steadfast resolve. In that shared silence, I found solace in the depth of her eyes. There was a glimmer, a spark of trust, that slowly began to flicker as I continued to speak in soft, calming tones. "Sometimes, when things seem overwhelming, it helps to know that someone is there who understands," I said, gently stroking her hair as if to smooth away the rough edges of her fears. The intimacy of that moment was profound. It was not merely the act of rescuing a child, but the dawning realization that our lives, so abruptly intersected, could offer each other the solace we both desperately needed. Her gaze, though still, shadowed by lingering anxiety, gradually grew steadier. I noticed the way her eyes, with their striking blue clarity, shimmered with a tentative hope. It was as if, in that fragile connection, she saw a possibility, a promise of care and unwavering protection that was rare in a world marred by neglect and hidden dangers. In that instance, I vowed silently that I would never let her down, that every fiber of my being would be dedicated to safeguarding her, even as I struggled to make sense of the mysteries that had led us to this juncture. Yet, as the warmth of our bond began to kindle, a deeper concern crept back into my thoughts. Despite the small comfort we found in each other's presence, I could not ignore the physical signs of distress that marred her delicate frame. Her fall had been more than a simple misstep. It had shaken her, leaving subtle marks of shock and perhaps even injury. I could see it in the slight wince as she shifted in my arms, a fleeting glimpse of pain that made my heart tighten with worry. "I need to make sure you're all right," I whispered, the tenderness in my tone belying a growing urgency. "Let's get you checked by someone who can help." My words were met with a hesitant nod, an acceptance of the care that I was determined to provide, no matter how fragile or small she seemed. It was clear that her physical well-being was intertwined with the emotional bond we were only just beginning to form. Reluctantly, the lingering magic of our quiet moment was replaced by the pragmatic need for medical attention. I stood up slowly, cradling Elena in my arms as I began to move towards the PAC's makeshift infirmary. Each step was a careful blend of purpose and protectiveness, my mind churning with silent promises and the weight of responsibilities. The mysterious shadows of the past, the dark histories of the Mitchells, the uncertainty of our future, seemed to recede momentarily in the face of this simple human need to heal, to care, and to nurture what was clearly precious. "Hold on. Tight, Ilana," I murmured, as I quickened my pace, my eyes scanning the familiar path ahead, as if searching for any sign of danger that might threaten her fragile state. The air around me pulsed with a sense of urgency and tender responsibility, a promise that I would not let the dark tendrils of the unknown encroach upon the small light that she represented. In that pivotal moment, as I carried her away from the cold stone steps and into the comforting promise of safety, I knew that this decision, seeking help, was just the beginning. It was the first step in a long journey of unraveling mysteries, of protecting the innocent, and of discovering how our intertwined fates might change the course of everything we once believed unalterable. The bond between us, forged in the silent, tender language of empathy and care, would be our guiding light through the dark, uncertain days ahead. With Elena safely in my arms, I made my way through the quiet, pre-dawn corridors towards the PAC hospital, a modest, time-worn building that carried the weight of countless lives and silent histories. The journey there felt like an expedition through a land suspended between hope and despair. Each step I took echoed with my inner urgency, my heart heavy with an inexplicable dread that went far beyond the pain of a mere fall. As I stepped out into the chill of the early morning, I noticed a few onlookers gathering near the entrance of the hospital. Their eyes, full of curiosity and thinly veiled concern, followed my every move. Some exchanged whispered remarks, while others simply stared, their faces etched with a mixture of sympathy and caution. The silent scrutiny of these PAC members, though unspoken, added a weight to the moment, as if the very air around us was charged with an unspoken judgment. I could feel their gaze, a stark reminder that in our world, every action is weighed against the legacy of our past. Inside the hospital, the atmosphere was almost ritualistic. The sterile scent of medicinal herbs mixed with the lingering aroma of incense burned in quiet corners, creating an environment that was both clinical and strangely sacred. I was led down a narrow corridor lined with aged portraits of previous alphas and guardians, a visual reminder of the generations who had faced adversity before me. The murmurs of those waiting, the shuffling of feet, and the subdued rustle of fabrics seemed to form an eerie symphony, marking the gravity of what was about to unfold. Dr. Martin, a figure whose presence commanded both respect and a hint of trepidation, awaited us in a small examination room at the heart of the hospital. His eyes were keen and discerning, scanning my face as if trying to read the silent story of my inner turmoil. He moved with a deliberate grace, every gesture measured and precise, as if performing a ritual passed down through the ages, a rite of passage in our pack that was meant to heal not just the body, but the spirit. As I gently laid Elena on the examination table, I could sense a palpable tension in the room. Dr. Martin's hands moved quickly yet tenderly, his touch both clinical and caring. There was a rhythm to his work, a practiced cadence that hinted at years of experience in treating wounds both visible and hidden. Still, as I watched him closely, I couldn't shake the gnawing feeling in the pit of my stomach. A subtle, persistent whisper that her pain was more than what a mere fall could explain. The doctor's brow furrowed slightly as he examined her, his touch lingering over small bruises and tender spots with a careful scrutiny that spoke of deeper concerns. I stood at the edge of the room, my heart pounding as I fought the rising tide of anxiety. Every small wince from Alana, every soft murmur of discomfort, echoed in my mind like a clarion call for protection. I wished I could take away every ounce of her pain, but I knew some things were beyond my power to heal. "She's more fragile than she appears," Dr. Martin finally remarked in a hushed tone, his words deliberate, each syllable weighted with the gravity of unspoken truths. "Her body carries the marks of more than just a fall. There's a history here, something that has scarred her beyond what the eye can see." Those words hit me like a cold wave, and my inner turmoil surged. My mind raced with questions. Had she been hurt before? Had she borne the silent burdens of neglect or abuse? The shadows of her past seemed to creep into the corners of the room, and I found myself wondering if my duty to protect her extended far beyond the physical realm. I turned to Dr. Martin, my voice barely a whisper. "Can you tell me what happened to her?" The question hung in the air, heavy with both desperation and determination. His eyes met mine, and in that moment, I saw a flicker of sorrow and regret, a silent acknowledgement that the truth was often buried deep, wrapped in layers of secrets, too painful to unravel easily. The ritual of the checkup continued, punctuated by the soft clink of medical instruments and the low hum of whispered consultations among the hospital staff. Every action seemed to underscore the gravity of the moment, as if the room itself were a sacred space where the past and present converged in a delicate dance of healing and revelation. The clinical efficiency of the hospital, juxtaposed with the almost reverent care of its practitioners, created an ambiance that was both reassuring and ominous. I felt the weight of responsibility press down on me, a burden that was at once both protective and suffocating. In that sterile room, I realized that my role had evolved from being merely a guardian to becoming a seeker of truth. I needed to know if there was more to Alana's injury than a clumsy stumble, if the scars on her body were the visible remnants of deeper hidden wounds. The prospect was almost too painful to fathom, yet I knew that without understanding the full extent of her suffering, I could not truly protect her. As Dr. Martin continued his careful examination, I resolved then and there that I would leave no stone unturned in my quest to safeguard her future. The journey to this hospital, the uneasy looks of our pack, and the solemn, almost ritualistic atmosphere of the examination had all coalesced into a stark reminder. Beneath the surface of every broken body, there often lay a story of pain, neglect, or even darker secrets waiting to be uncovered. In that defining moment, standing in the dim light of the pack hospital, I silently vowed to do everything in my power to heal not just her physical wounds, but the invisible ones etched deep within her soul. The truth of her pain might be shrouded in mystery, but I knew that with every beat of my heart, I would search for it relentlessly, determined to bring light into the darkest corners of her past. Returning to headquarters, every step felt heavy, with indignation and a simmering rage that threatened to boil over. The cold corridors of our pack stronghold, usually a haven of order and discipline, now echoed with my rapid heartbeat and the sound of my determined strides. I had just left the sterile hospital room with Alana, a fragile, desperate promise of hope amid so many unanswered questions, when I knew I had to confront the storm head-on. The tension was palpable as I burst through the imposing oak doors, my eyes immediately locking onto Jacob Mitchell and his partner. There, in the central hall where the pack's history was etched into every stone and banner, stood the duo with faces twisted into sneers of defiance and arrogance. Their presence ignited something primal in me, a mix of righteous fury and protective desperation. I felt my pulse surge, each beat a silent declaration that I would not tolerate any threat to my family. "Jacob!" I bellowed, my voice echoing off the walls, raw emotion cracking through every syllable. For a moment, time seemed to pause, and every member of the pack turned to witness the impending collision of wills. The murmurs of onlookers swirled around us, each word heavy with a mix of fear, anticipation, and loyalty. In that charged silence, Jacob's eyes narrowed into slits, and his partner stepped forward, their expressions contorted into a mirror of scorn. "You have some nerve coming here, accusing us of wrongdoing," Jacob spat, his tone a venomous hiss that barely masked the underlying tension. His partner's eyes flashed with a cold, calculating fury, a silent threat that words alone could not convey. My anger, honed by years of protecting those dear to me, surged as I took a step closer. "You think you can waltz into my pack and hide behind your polished manners?" I shouted, my voice a blend of fury and sorrow. "Ilana isn't just a child. She's a symbol of everything I've fought for, innocence, hope, and the promise of a future we're all supposed to share. And I won't stand by while your past, your secrets, and your cruelty threaten that." The confrontation exploded into chaos. My beta, Alex, appeared at my side, his presence a quiet yet unwavering support, while other pack members murmured their approval and discontent. The air thickened with a dangerous cocktail of raw emotion and barely restrained hostility, as if the walls themselves were trembling under the weight of unspoken accusations. Jacob's partner stepped forward, her voice sharp and cold. "You know nothing of our lives," she retorted, her tone dripping with disdain. "Our family has its burdens, its history, things you could never begin to understand. But do not mistake our pain for weakness." Her words cut deep, sparking a fleeting flash of regret within me. Yet the hurt was quickly replaced by the fire of conviction. Pain? Weakness? What you call pain, I call abuse. I call it a pattern of neglect and cruelty that stains your family's legacy. How many times have you been on the move? How many packs have you left behind, leaving scars that never healed? My voice wavered for a split second with barely concealed rage, each question a dagger aimed at exposing the hidden rot beneath their polished exteriors. The faces before me contorted with anger and a trace of fear, as if my words had touched upon secrets they had desperately tried to bury. In that electric moment, the stakes were laid bare. Accepting the Mitchells into our fold wasn't just about strength. It was about trust, history, and the scars of abuse that could tear our pack apart if left unchecked. A heavy silence fell, punctuated only by the low hum of distant voices and the shuffling of feet. My heart pounded in my chest as I saw Jacob's knuckles whiten around the strap of his pack insignia, and I knew this was no mere verbal spat. It was a clash of values, a battle between the promise of protection and the darkness of hidden sins. I could sense the weight of his family's past, the whispers of betrayal and cruelty that clung to them like a second skin. "I have seen what your constant transfers have cost," I continued, my voice now steadier, laced with both sorrow and defiance. "You speak of burdens, but your burdens have become weapons, tools to justify cruelty, to hide behind lies. Ilana's pain is not a simple accident. It's a symptom of a deeper, festering wound, a wound inflicted by a history of neglect, and possibly even abuse. And if you think I won't stand against it, then you are gravely mistaken. In that defining moment, the hall became a battleground of raw emotions. Some pack members shifted uncomfortably, while others nodded in silent agreement, their eyes reflecting the same determination I felt pulsing through my veins. The confrontation wasn't merely a clash of words. It was an assertion of the duty I owed to my pack, to protect our innocence and ensure that no one would exploit the vulnerable under our watch. Jacob's face hardened further, and for a heartbeat, it seemed as if he might lunge forward. But then, as if forced by the gravity of the moment, he took a step back. His eyes, once filled with venom, now held a flicker of something darker. A haunted regret, perhaps, or the burden of a history, too painful to bear. His partner's gaze, equally conflicted, faltered momentarily, and in that brief lapse, the air grew even more charged with unsaid truths. The confrontation had set the stage for what was to come, a revelation of darker secrets, a painful unearthing of the abuses hidden within the Mitchell family's past. As I stood there, breathing heavily and glaring into the depths of their eyes, I knew that this explosive exchange was only the beginning. A storm was gathering on the horizon, one that would demand to be reckoned with, and I was prepared to face it head-on, for the sake of Elena, for the sake of our pack, and for the hope that even the darkest past could be illuminated by truth and justice. In the quiet solitude of my mind, the present began to blur with the echoes of a past filled with pain and neglect, a past that still clung to me like an unyielding shadow. I remember those early years, a time when love was a foreign concept, and protection was nothing more than a hollow promise. My own family, the very people who were meant to nurture and shield me, instead cast me aside with harsh words, and even harsher actions. Their cruelty was a constant companion, an ever-present force that left scars deeper than any physical wound. I recall the long, lonely nights when I would lie awake on a cold, hard floor, listening to the bitter silence that replaced any semblance of affection. I was a child in desperate need of warmth and reassurance, yet all I found were the echoes of shouted insults and the bitter taste of disappointment. Every day was a battle, a fight to survive the onslaught of indifference and cruelty that marked my existence. I longed for a gentle touch, a kind word, the simple comfort of knowing someone cared. But instead, I was met with cold stares and dismissive gestures, as if my very existence was an inconvenience to be tolerated rather than cherished. Those early memories still haunt me, each one a sharp reminder of what it means to be unprotected. I remember the look in my mother's eyes, a vacant, pained stare that spoke of her own suffering, and the way my father's voice would rise in anger, leaving me trembling in the aftermath. In that turbulent household, vulnerability was met with scorn, and every cry for help was silenced by the overwhelming force of familial neglect. It was as if love itself had been banished, replaced by a relentless storm of abuse that left no room for compassion. Yet amid the chaos and darkness, a spark of hope managed to survive, a small, defiant ember that whispered of the possibility of protection and love. It was that ember which drove me to seek solace in the embrace of those who could offer something different, who could be the guardian I had never known. That yearning for a safe haven, for a family that would hold me close instead of pushing me away, has never left me. Instead, it has grown into a fierce determination, a burning resolve to shield those I care for from the kind of pain I once endured. Now, as I stood before the remnants of my past in the form of the Mitchell confrontation, those old wounds throbbed with renewed intensity. The memory of my own family's neglect surged back, fueling my anger and determination in equal measure. I realized then that my drive to protect Elena was not just born from a sense of duty to my pack, but from a deeply personal need to prevent another innocent soul from suffering as I once did, I vowed silently that no child under my care would ever feel the bitter sting of abandonment or abuse. In those painful moments, I remembered the nights I wished desperately for someone to rescue me from the darkness, a gentle soul to offer solace and love when all I received was cruelty. I recalled how each rejection, each act of neglect, had built a wall around my heart, yet paradoxically, had also ignited an unquenchable desire to break that cycle of pain. I learned early on that the absence of love could breed a fierce, unyielding strength. A strength I now channeled into every fiber of my being as I sought to protect those who, like me, deserved a better life. The memories were vivid. The trembling voice of a child begging for a gentle word, the warmth of a hug that never came, the echo of empty promises that left me yearning for a safe embrace. These recollections were not just painful, they were transformative. They taught me that to truly shield someone, I had to become the guardian I had always craved. Every cruel word and every harsh touch had etched itself into my soul, and in their place, a resolve had taken root. I would fight not only against the present threat, but against the specters of the past that threatened to repeat themselves. As I confronted Jacob Mitchell and his partner, I felt that fierce determination swell inside me, a powerful force driven by memories of loneliness and the desperate need for protection. The cruelty I had once suffered had become the catalyst for my current mission, a mission to ensure that no one under my watch would endure the same agony. Every part of me ached to make things right, to create a world where the vulnerable were cherished, not cast aside. In that moment, I made a silent promise to myself to channel the pain of my past into a relentless pursuit of justice and care. The scars I carried were not merely reminders of what had been lost, but emblems of the strength I had forged in the crucible of neglect. And now, with Elena in my arms, I knew that I would fight with every breath, every heartbeat, to offer her the protection and love that had eluded me for so long. The weight of my childhood, heavy with sorrow and unmet needs, became the very foundation of my resolve. I would not allow history to repeat itself, nor would I let another innocent soul be left to suffer in silence. In the depths of my pain, I found a wellspring of courage, a testament to the human spirit's ability to rise from the ashes and build something new, something hopeful. And so, with each step forward, I carried not only the burden of my past, but also the bright, unyielding promise of a future where love and protection would finally triumph over cruelty. After the heated confrontation with the Mitchells, the charged atmosphere began to dissipate like mist under a rising sun. I found solace in the quiet moments that followed, as my mate and I slipped away from the tumultuous hallways of our pack headquarters into the gentle embrace of the fading light. The anger and raw emotion still lingered in the air, but in that instant, we were determined to reclaim our sanctuary, a space of warmth, safety, and tender understanding. In the privacy of a secluded corridor, away from the prying eyes of our pack members, I could feel the weight of the day melting away as I pulled my mate close. Her presence was a balm to my troubled soul, her familiar scent, soft hints of vanilla and sweet berries, reminding me that even in the midst of chaos, love could be our anchor. With a quiet smile, she pressed her cheek to mine, and for a few precious moments, our world contracted to just the two of us, where only our shared heartbeat and whispered promises mattered. Today was a lot, I murmured, my voice low and gentle as I cradled her hand in mine. She laughed softly, a sound that was both playful and comforting, and replied, "Yes, it was, but you handled it like the fearless alpha you are." There was a glint of mischief in her eyes, a brief spark of humor that cut through the residual tension. I couldn't help but chuckle at the understatement, knowing full well the depth of turmoil that still simmered beneath my calm facade. We leaned against the cool stone wall, the murmurs of our departing footsteps echoing softly behind us. As we stood there, I felt the embrace of her arms tighten around me, conveying a silent promise of shared strength and the unwavering determination to protect what was most precious. the safety of our children, the promise of our future. "I promise," I whispered. "No matter what storms come our way, I'll always keep them safe. I'll protect you and our little ones with everything I have." Her eyes, bright with unshed tears and a fierce love, met mine, and in that exchange, I found a well of reassurance that seemed to heal the deepest wounds of the day. The moment was punctuated by a gentle humor that seemed almost out of place amid the remnants of conflict. I recalled how earlier, in the midst of the shouting and the threats, I had almost forgotten the silly things that made our bond unique. "You know," I said with a wry smile, "if I had a nickel for every time I thought of running into a wall from all this rage, I'd probably have enough to buy us a fortress." She laughed, a soft, melodious sound that filled the narrow corridor with lightness and hope. "Well," she teased back, "I'd settle for a cozy little house and a huge, bouncy bed for our kids. Just imagine, so much room to run around, without any of that pack drama." The absurdity of the idea made us both laugh, and for a fleeting moment, the scars of the day softened into the background. In our quiet haven, with the echoes of confrontation still whispering faintly at the edges of our shared solitude, we began to navigate the delicate balance between lingering fear and hopeful promise. Our conflicting emotions, anger at injustice, sorrow for the past, and a resilient, burning desire to forge a better future, blended together in an intricate dance of vulnerability and strength. We discussed our plans softly, our words laden with the responsibility of leadership yet imbued with a tenderness that only deep love can foster. "Do you remember when we used to sneak out to the garden as kids?" she asked, her voice a gentle caress. "We'd lie on the grass and dream about the future, thinking nothing could ever go wrong." I nodded, the memory vivid in my mind, the simple joy of carefree moments, unburdened by the harsh realities of our world. "I do," I replied. "And today, despite everything, I feel that spark of hope again. Like maybe, just maybe, we're meant to build that dream together." Her smile was both wistful and determined, a beacon that guided us through the murkiness of our thoughts. We spoke of the children, of how every day we'd nurture them not just with care and protection, but with the laughter and lightness that our own childhoods had been deprived of. "They deserve a life filled with love, not shadows of the past," I said, clinging to every word as if it were a lifeline. As we eventually stepped away from our intimate reprieve, the reality of our responsibilities began to resurface. The pack needed to know that, despite the turmoil, we were united in our mission to protect and nurture. We agreed to meet with the elders later, to set forth new guidelines for ensuring the safety of our vulnerable ones, including the little girl who had inadvertently become the symbol of our shared resolve. That quiet, unexpected moment of tenderness had reaffirmed something vital. Amidst the battles fought with raw emotion and threats of violence, there was a profound, unbreakable bond between us, a bond that was the very essence of hope. It was a reminder that no matter how dark the night, love and gentle humor could always light the way. And as we left our secluded corner to rejoin our pack, we carried with us the promise that our hearts, intertwined and resolute, would always be the fortress where our children could find safety and warmth. After the confrontation, I finally made my way back home through the winding paths of our pack's domain, where nature's embrace seemed to wash away the bitterness of conflict. The familiar scent of blooming wildflowers mingled with the crisp morning air, guiding my steps like a gentle promise of solace. The vast garden that surrounded our headquarters was a vibrant tapestry of color and life, a stark contrast to the turmoil of earlier hours. Each petal, each leaf, whispered a quiet reassurance that, despite the dark echoes of the past, there was still beauty in the world. As I approached our home, the sounds of laughter and soft murmurs drifted through the open windows, melding with the rustle of the wind through the trees. The warmth of the house, a sturdy yet welcoming structure adorned with cherished mementos and family photos, seemed to radiate care and comfort. It was here, in this sanctum of shared memories and enduring bonds, that I could finally set aside the weight of responsibility and simply be a part of something larger, a family that cared, a pack that nurtured. Inside, the dinner table was set in a way that spoke of tradition and tender attentiveness. The long wooden table was laid out with dishes of hearty stew, freshly baked bread, and a medley of vegetables picked straight from the garden. The aroma was intoxicating, a blend of earthy spices and sweet herbs that evoked the feeling of home and heart. Around the table, children's laughter rang out as they played a simple game of hide-and-seek among the chairs, their giggles and playful chatter creating a soothing backdrop to the evening meal. I took my seat with my mate, who sat close enough for our hands to meet across the table, a silent conversation of love and reassurance. Our eyes met over the clinking of cutlery and the gentle hum of family chatter, and for a moment, the world outside faded into insignificance. The children, innocent and unburdened, spoke of trivial things, the color of a newly discovered flower, the taste of a sweet apple, and plans for tomorrow's adventures, while the elders shared quiet smiles, their expressions hinting at a long history of shared triumphs and sorrows. Yet, beneath the warmth of this domestic scene, there lingered subtle shadows of uncertainty. Every so often, as the conversation drifted into lighter topics, my thoughts would stray to Alana, the little girl whose presence had disrupted our day with its mystery. Though she sat quietly at the far end of the table, her eyes downcast and her small hands fidgeting with the hem of her dress, a barely perceptible tension wove through her demeanor. I caught a fleeting glimpse of something in her gaze, a hidden story, a hint of pain that no playful game or hearty laugh could erase. It was as if she carried the weight of past hurts, scars invisible to the casual observer but deeply etched in the shadows of her soul. Between mouthfuls of the savory stew, I stole a glance at her. There was an air of fragile resilience about her, like a delicate flower that had survived a harsh winter. I recalled the trembling in her eyes when I rescued her on the steps, the quiet fear and vulnerability that had spoken volumes of untold stories. In that moment, the juxtaposition of the innocent merriment around me and the undercurrent of her silent sorrow deepened my resolve. I knew that beyond the laughter and the warmth, there lay a need for healing, a need that extended far beyond the physical comforts of our home. Throughout the meal, gentle conversations meandered from one topic to another, yet I couldn't help but feel that every shared smile and tender word was a thread in a larger tapestry of care, a tapestry that must also be strong enough to support those whose past had been marred by neglect and pain. I found myself promising, in quiet moments between bites, that I would seek to understand the depths of her story and to offer the protection and love that she so desperately deserved. As dessert was served, a simple yet delightful plate of fruit and a light spiced pudding, the family's jovial energy returned in full measure. The children raced about with sugar on their tongues, and even the adults found themselves momentarily drawn into playful banter. My maid and I exchanged knowing smiles over the table, our eyes reflecting a shared determination to maintain the safety and happiness of our little ones, even if it meant confronting uncomfortable truths buried beneath layers of past abuse. In the soft glow of the evening, as the meal slowly came to an end, I felt a stirring resolve within me. The joyful chaos of the dinner, the innocent laughter of the children, and the warm bonds of family had all served as a counterbalance to the lingering tension of uncertainty. But they also reminded me that true strength was found in vulnerability, in the willingness to acknowledge and heal the scars of the past. With every shared glance and every gentle word, I was more determined than ever to ensure that our home remained a sanctuary, a place where every member, no matter how small or troubled, could feel safe, loved, and understood. As the family began to disperse for the night, I lingered at the table a moment longer, my mind already planning the next steps to uncover and address the hidden wounds in Elena's story. The quiet domesticity of our pack's life was a fragile, beautiful thing, one that I was resolved to protect, even as I braced for the challenges that lay ahead. As the twilight deepened into a cool, star-speckled night, the comforting hum of our pack's household began to morph into a symphony of small, domestic conflicts. Inside our warm, familiar home, the last rays of the day were now replaced by the soft glow of lanterns and the steady murmur of voices that were soon to rise in a clamor of disagreement over something as simple, yet as significant, as bedtime. In one corner of the living room, a lively argument had erupted among the children. Their tiny faces, flushed with the thrill of lingering energy, contorted with both stubbornness and a yearning for comfort. "I don't want to sleep in my room," one little voice declared, while another retorted, "I want to stay with Mommy." Their words tumbled out in a chaotic blend of giggles and protests, echoing against the walls with both humor and heartache. The playful battle for bedtime was a ritual that every evening brought, a tug-of-war between the freedom of lingering play and the promise of a safe, snug bed. My mate and I stood nearby, our expressions mingling amusement with tender concern. I exchanged a look with her, a silent communication that said we both understood the delicate balance we were trying to maintain. In our own way, we knew that enforcing separation at night was necessary for structure and rest. Yet every enforced good night felt like a little heartbreak for these young souls who clung to each other as if their very lives depended on it. "All right, everyone, time to get ready for bed," I announced gently, though the firmness in my tone left no room for negotiation. Still, as I began shepherding the children toward their designated sleeping spaces, I couldn't help but notice the determined protests, a tiny fist clenching a blanket here, a soft whimper of reluctance there. One child, his eyes sparkling, with defiance and longing, tugged at my sleeve and pleaded, "But I don't want to be alone." His words, innocent yet laced with a deep need for closeness, resonated with me and brought a pang of sympathy to my heart. Amid the mild chaos, my mate crouched down beside our youngest daughter, her voice a soothing murmur as she tried to convince the little one that sleep was a gateway to magical dreams. "Imagine all the wonderful adventures waiting for you in dreamland," she cooed, her words as warm and soft as a gentle lullaby. The child's frown softened into reluctant acceptance, a silent surrender to the inevitable call of sleep. Yet, even as the children began to disperse into their rooms, the air was heavy with an unspoken tension, a sense that this nightly ritual was as much a battle as it was a comfort. In the hallway, I paused by a window where I could see the soft silhouettes of our children settling in for the night, their small figures, curled up under blankets and clutching stuffed animals, painted a poignant picture of innocence touched by the bittersweet reality of enforced separations. I could almost hear the soft rustling of dreams beginning to form, each one a fragile hope against the backdrop of their unspoken fears. Meanwhile, inside our own room, my mate and I found a brief respite from the bustle of bedtime negotiations. We sat together on the edge of our bed, our hands intertwined, and for a moment, the world seemed to narrow down to just the two of us. The quiet comfort of that shared space allowed us to exchange whispers about the day, a soft blend of humor and heartfelt worry. "I swear, every night is like trying to herd kittens," she murmured with a laugh that was as light as it was melancholic. I chuckled, imagining the tiny, determined faces of our children as they resisted the call of sleep with all their might. Yet beneath the humor lay the tender pain of knowing that every good night was also a reminder of the challenges they faced, a daily struggle between the allure of freedom and the safety of our embrace. I remembered my own childhood, a time when enforced separations meant the world was too vast and frightening. And in that memory, I saw clearly why I would fight so hard to shield these little ones from such loneliness. The conversation between my mate and I deepened, revealing a shared, unspoken resolve. "They deserve to feel safe," I said softly, "to know that even when we're apart, our love will always bring them back together." She nodded, her eyes reflecting the same fierce determination. It was a promise, unspoken yet binding. A commitment to mend the subtle fractures that each bedtime tug-of-war had etched into our hearts. Outside, the cool night air whispered through the open window, carrying with it the faint sounds of the pack's nightly routines. The distant murmur of voices, the clink of utensils in the kitchen, and the occasional laugh from one of the children mingled into a lullaby of domestic life, a melody that was both soothing and tinged with the promise of future resolutions. The evening wore on, and the arguments over bedtime finally quieted into soft snores and whispered dreams. I sat by the window for a moment, looking out at the tranquil garden under the moonlight. The silver luminescence bathed everything in a gentle glow, and I felt the familiar ache of responsibility settle over me. In that moment, I realized that each night's struggle was not merely about enforcing rules, but about nurturing a family, about bridging the gap between their innocence and the harsh realities they might one day face. It was a small, everyday battle, a fight between the impulse to let them linger in freedom and the necessity of comfort and safety. And though tonight was fraught with disagreements and the quiet sorrow of parting, I knew deep within my heart that tomorrow we would come together again, united by love and fortified by the promise that no matter how challenging the night, our family would always find its way back to one another. The first light of dawn crept gently across our home, softening every edge of the world in its golden glow. In the quiet moments before the bustle of school began, the kitchen transformed into a haven of warmth and subtle comfort. I sat at the long, time-worn wooden table, the scent of freshly brewed herbal tea and warm toast mingling with the delicate aroma of wildflowers drifting in through the open window. Outside, the garden was alive with the gentle chorus of birds, welcoming the new day, and the sky bore the faint blush of early morning, promising a day filled with possibility. In that peaceful cocoon, every detail seemed imbued with a sense of purpose. I carefully arranged a tray of breakfast, slices of honey-glazed bread, a bowl of mixed fruits, and a freshly squeezed glass of juice that I had prepared the night before. My favorite juice box, adorned with vibrant illustrations of cheerful animals, held a special place on the table. It wasn't just a drink, it was a symbol of comfort and connection, a small token of the care that we nurtured within our home. As my little ones began to stir, the household started to come alive. In the soft, reassuring rhythms of the morning, the children's sleepy eyes gradually opened, revealing expressions that blended lingering dreams with the cautious hope of a new day. I could see in each of them the spark of innocence and a quiet determination to greet the world despite its hidden shadows. It was in these tender moments that I found solace, knowing that, despite the trials we faced, our family's bond remained unbreakable. I reached for the juice box, unscrewing its cap with deliberate care, and offered it to one of my children with a gentle smile. "Here you go," I said softly, my voice carrying the warmth of a promise. As they took the juice, their eyes lit, up for a brief, magical moment. That simple act of sharing, a favorite drink passed between hands, became a ritual of affection, an unspoken affirmation that, no matter what happened, we would always take care of one another. But as the laughter and chatter of a slowly awakening family filled the kitchen, subtle hints of something deeper stirred beneath the surface. There was a quiet murmur in the corners of my mind, a lingering curiosity about the perfect facade that we wore so effortlessly. Our home, with its harmonious routines and tender care, masked stories and secrets that lay hidden beneath the gentle exterior. The soft hum of the refrigerator and the distant clink of cutlery seemed to echo with unasked questions. A reminder that even in our moments of domestic bliss, the past and present intertwined in mysterious ways. I watched as my children, still rubbing the sleep from their eyes, gathered around the table. One of them, a bright-eyed child with a mop of unruly hair, reached up and pulled me close. "Daddy, this is my favorite juice too," they whispered, voice brimming with the simplicity of childhood trust. In that instant, I felt the deep, unyielding connection that formed the foundation of our family. It was as if the sharing of that humble juice box held the power to bridge every distance, every hidden sorrow, every unspoken secret. While I poured a little more juice into a fresh cup, my mind wandered momentarily to the mysteries that I kept, locked away in the recesses of my heart. There were stories, darker and more intricate than any of the joyful moments we now shared, secrets that had once threatened to tear our family apart. Yet, in these gentle mornings, those memories softened, like shadows at sunrise, reminding me that healing was possible even after the deepest hurt. The contrast between our current harmony and the unresolved echoes of the past was both a comfort and a quiet reminder that not everything was as it seemed. I tried to push the thoughts aside, focusing instead on the pure, unadulterated joy of these moments. The children's innocent giggles, the soft clatter of utensils, and the rhythmic cadence of our shared breakfast painted a picture of a life that, for all its complexities, was grounded in love and care. Yet, every now and then, a fleeting glimpse, a look from an older relative, a whispered conversation behind closed doors, hinted that our seemingly perfect morning held secrets yet to be fully uncovered. As the final drops of juice were savored, and the table gradually cleared for the day ahead, I felt a profound sense of gratitude. In the quiet pause between the laughter and the inevitable rush of the day, I recognized that this simple, shared ritual was our anchor, a moment of stability amidst the unpredictable tides of our lives. Even as I prepared to send the children off to school, I knew that the gentle sweetness of the morning would linger in our hearts, a constant reminder of the love that bound us together. And so, with a heart full of tender care and a mind quietly wrestling with the mysteries of our past, I embraced the promise of the new day. There was an unspoken understanding that our family's harmonious facade, while radiant and full of life, might one day reveal deeper layers, a tapestry woven with both joy and sorrow. For now, though, the shared juice, the soft smiles, and the gentle murmur of a morning well spent were enough. They were enough to inspire hope, enough to build the strength we needed to face whatever secrets the future might unveil. Later that morning, as the soft golden light filtered through the curtains and the remnants of our breakfast ritual lingered in the air, a quiet conversation unfolded in the heart of our family's living room. The room, filled with the gentle hum of the day's awakening and the scent of fresh blossoms from the garden, became a sanctuary of secrets and shared destinies. I sat on the worn but comforting sofa, with my child nestled on my lap, their wide, curious eyes reflecting the innocence of youth. Today, I had decided, was the day to share something deeply personal, a truth about our world that was as extraordinary as it was ancient, the bond of mates. "Do you know what a soulmate is?" I asked softly, my voice a tender murmur that barely disturbed the peaceful silence. My child tilted their head, the question stirring a spark of wonder that I hoped to nurture. "I've heard some people call it a mate bond, a connection, so powerful it binds two souls together for life," I continued, choosing my words carefully, as if weaving magic with each syllable. They listened intently, their small fingers tracing absent patterns on my arm, as if trying to grasp the meaning behind the words. "It's like destiny," my child ventured, eyes shining with the unfiltered purity of youth. I smiled. At that, my heart warming at the simplicity with which they could understand such a profound concept. "Yes, exactly," I replied. "Destiny, fate, it's all a part of it. When two souls are meant to be together, nothing in the world can tear them apart. It's as if the universe itself has written their story, and every star in the sky is a witness to that promise." I paused, letting the weight of my words sink in, then continued. "In our world, mates aren't just partners, they're our anchors. They are the ones who help us carry our burdens and share our joys, who protect us when the storms of life rage. It's a bond so deep that even if you're apart, you can feel what the other is feeling. Imagine that. Being connected in a way that goes beyond words, beyond even time. My child's eyes grew even wider, a mixture of awe and a hint of something more. A recognition of the extraordinary nature of what I was describing. Is that why you and Mama, or you and my other parent, are always so close? They asked, the innocence in their voice making the notion almost tangible. I nodded, stroking their hair gently as I replied, "Yes, sweetheart, that's exactly why. Our bond is not just about love in the everyday sense. It's a cosmic connection. When two people are truly meant to be together, every part of them is intertwined. They share not only their hopes and dreams, but also their fears and their sorrows. It's a promise, written in the very fabric of our being." There was a moment of silence as my child pondered these words, and I sensed their mind racing with images of stars, destinies, and magical connections. The room seemed to grow quieter, as if the very air was holding its breath. I could feel the weight of generations past, and the silent stories of mates who had come before us, each one a testament to a bond that was as enduring as it was mysterious. "Doe, you know," I continued, my tone taking on a reflective quality, "that when a mate bond is formed, it can even help us see into each other's hearts. Sometimes it feels like our thoughts are shared, like a secret language that only we understand. It's almost as if our souls are whispering to each other, reminding us that we're never truly alone." My voice softened further, filled with a mixture of pride and vulnerability. "I feel that connection every day. Even when we're apart, I can sense your feelings, and I know you can sense mine. It's our destiny, a sacred promise that we're meant to protect one another, come what may." My child, with the earnestness of one who believed in fairy tales, looked up and asked, "Does that mean our bond is magic?" I laughed gently, the sound mingling with the quiet symphony of the morning. "In a way, yes," I said. "It's the most real magic there is. It's not magic in the sense of wands or spells, but a force that binds us together, stronger than any storm, deeper than any ocean. It makes our love and our commitment unbreakable." As I spoke, I could sense an undercurrent of tension, a subtle reminder that while the mate bond was a source of great strength and comfort, it was also intertwined with challenges and hidden truths. There were moments when the extraordinary nature of our connection would reveal itself in unexpected ways, moments that hinted at secrets and trials we had yet to face. Yet, those very mysteries only deepened the beauty and complexity of our bond, urging us to cherish it even more fiercely. And, sir, that soft morning light, with the garden's fragrance lingering in our room and the quiet murmur of the world outside, I made a silent vow. I vowed that the mate bond, this cosmic, unbreakable connection, would be our guiding light through all the hardships yet to come. I promised that I would always protect and nurture this bond, ensuring that our family remained a beacon of hope, love, and resilience. "Remember, my dear," I whispered as I hugged my child close, "our bond is our destiny, and nothing, not even the darkest secret, can ever break it. It's a promise that stretches across time and space, a gentle reminder that we are forever connected." In that tender, reflective moment, the extraordinary nature of our mate bond shimmered like a hidden constellation in our hearts, a luminous guide that promised safety, understanding, and an unyielding commitment to one another. And as the morning unfurled into the day, that promise remained our quiet, unspoken secret, a secret of destiny, love, and the magic that made us whole. The schoolyard was a universe in itself, a buzzing microcosm of adolescent energy and whispered secrets. As I navigated the corridors of my high school, I couldn't help but notice how every face carried its own story, every whispered conversation hinting at the complexities of mate bonds and the destinies they promised. The chatter among my peers was a mix of excitement and envy, with some admiring those who had found their mates early, and others bitterly questioning the fate of those who had not. In this atmosphere of budding romance and high school gossip, every smile and every stolen glance felt charged with the promise of something magical and irreversible. I could sense the air vibrating with speculation, how our mates were more than just partners, but symbols of an unspoken destiny. Whispers traveled quickly, rumors sprouting like wildflowers. Some said that if a mate bond was strong enough, it could even influence the course of one's life, binding hearts and fates in a way that defied logic. It was in these halls that I, too, felt the weight of this destiny pressing upon me, even as I struggled with the rapidly changing dynamics of growing up. Amid this swirl of adolescent drama, I found my thoughts constantly drifting to Alana, my little angel whose presence in my life was as unexpected as it was transformative. In the midst of a crowded lunch break, I caught a glimpse of her across the schoolyard, a small, determined figure with eyes that shone like distant stars amid the chaos. Her innocence, juxtaposed against the harsh realities of our world, struck me with both tenderness and an unyielding need to protect her. I couldn't help but feel that every whispered comment and every knowing look among my classmates hinted at a larger, almost mythic narrative woven around the mate bond we shared. The day unfolded with a delicate tension that hovered between playful banter and the gravity of unspoken promises. At one point, during a break between classes, I found myself alone with her near a secluded bench beneath a sprawling oak. The schoolyard noise faded into a background murmur as we sat side by side, sharing a quiet moment that felt like the calm before a storm. The conversation was simple, a mix of childish musings and soft, almost tentative words of affection. Yet, beneath the surface, a silent understanding blossomed, one that spoke of deep connections and destinies intertwined. As we talked, I became aware of the subtle glances exchanged by others, a ripple of gossip that wove through the crowd like a secret melody. "They say he's growing up too fast," one voice murmured somewhere in the throng, while another declared, "Isn't it strange how some mates seem to have this unbreakable bond?" These murmurs, though fleeting, added an almost palpable weight to our interaction, as if every word we exchanged was observed and judged by an unseen audience. That awareness only deepened my internal conflict, a battle between the desire to preserve the innocence of our fragile connection and the inevitable pull of growing up, of facing the responsibilities and changes that awaited us. In that delicate interlude, my heart began to race, and I sensed a moment brimming with both vulnerability and courage. I found myself inching closer to her, my pulse a wild drum in my ears. The air between us felt charged, every breath a silent plea for the connection to deepen further. Her eyes, large and luminous in the soft morning light, held a question, a quiet, unspoken inquiry that mirrored my own inner longing. And then, as if guided by an unseen force, I leaned forward, closing the remaining gap between us. The first kiss, unexpected, tender, and transformative, was like a declaration written in the language of souls. It was gentle at first, as if testing the waters of this newfound intimacy, yet quickly it grew into a bold, unspoken vow of love. In that fleeting, electrifying moment, I felt the rush of emotion overwhelm me, a surge of hope and determination that spoke of an unbreakable bond, a mate bond that defied the ordinary constraints of time and age. It was as if the very act of that kiss whispered promises of safety and mutual protection, of shared dreams, and a destiny that was far greater than the sum of our parts. Even as our lips parted and the blush of the moment faded into a soft glow of understanding, I was acutely aware of the changing tides within me. Here I was, a boy caught in the liminal space between childhood and the dawning responsibilities of adulthood, experiencing a moment of pure, unguarded emotion that felt both wondrous and terrifying. The kiss was not merely a tender gesture. It was a harbinger of change, a signal that our once simple connection was evolving into something profound and irrevocable. Inside, I wrestled with the complexity of growing up and the shifting dynamics of love. How could I hold on to the innocence of our first kiss while knowing that the road ahead was fraught with challenges and the inevitable burdens of destiny? I felt the pull of maturity, urging me to embrace the responsibilities that came with such an extraordinary bond, even as a part of me yearned to remain in the sweet, protective cocoon of our shared moment. The schoolyard, with all its chatter and gossip, faded into a distant hum as I resolved to cherish this delicate moment. In the space between that first kiss and the cacophony of adolescent life, I discovered a promise that no matter how turbulent the journey, our mate bond would serve as a guiding light, a source of strength and tenderness in a world that was often too harsh for its young hearts. As the final bell rang and the day's lessons began to slip away, I clutched that memory close, knowing that this singular, transformative moment was the first step in a journey that would redefine not just who I was, but who we would become, together, bound by destiny and the unspoken magic of a first, unforgettable kiss. Night had fallen heavy and unyielding over the pack, and in its shadow, darker truths began to emerge. The warm, domestic moments of earlier hours now felt like fragile echoes, easily shattered by the stark reality that had always lurked beneath our community's surface. As I walked through the corridors of our headquarters, my mind replayed whispered rumors and furtive glances, clues to a hidden world of abuse and mistreatment that I had long hoped was merely a myth. Yet the chill in my bones told me otherwise. I recalled incidents from the past, the hasty glances exchanged when a certain pack member was punished for minor infractions, the way whispers of brutal discipline and savage retribution would ripple through the ranks like wildfire. My heart ached with the memory of a time when a fellow pack member had been dragged away to face unspeakable punishments in that notorious facility known as the Blood Moon Prison, a place where justice was a cruel joke, and where even the strongest were broken by its relentless brutality. The weight of these recollections spurred a fierce determination in me. I would protect my mate and our children at any cost. No matter how deep the darkness ran, I would be their shield. Every moment spent within these walls, every cruel word and harsh punishment inflicted by those who wielded power like a weapon, only steeled my resolve. I had witnessed too many lives destroyed by cruelty, and I refused to allow that fate to befall those I loved. As I strode purposefully through the dimly lit hallways, I couldn't help but feel that danger was closing in on us. There were murmurs among the elders, a fear that the long-hidden injustices were ready to surface, the vicious punishments meted out in secret, the silent abuse that went unreported, all hinted at a looming threat. The pack's leadership, its misguided attempts to maintain order, sometimes resorted to methods so savage they bordered on inhumanity. It was a price, they claimed, for maintaining our strength and unity. But I knew that strength built on the suffering of its own kind was a hollow, dangerous force. I remembered a particular incident, etched in my memory with the clarity of a nightmare. A young pup, barely old enough to understand the concept of pain, had been punished for defying orders. The sight of that terrified, broken child haunted me for years. The whispers of that day still echoed in the corners of my mind, a constant reminder of the price of protection when it was enforced by cruelty rather than care. That memory, painful and raw, ignited in me a vow, a promise to overturn a system that had once failed to protect its most vulnerable. Determined, I reached a secluded part of the headquarters, where I could momentarily gather my thoughts away from prying eyes. I sat on a cold stone bench, the weight of my past and the burdens of the present pressing down upon me. I could almost feel the eyes of the pack, the judgment of those who either supported or silently endured the abusive ways of our leaders. I thought of my mate, her strength, her gentle resilience, and the unyielding love that bound us together. I thought of our children, innocent and unscarred, and the promise I had made to them that I would never let such darkness touch their lives. A fierce storm of determination surged within me. I resolved that I would not allow the shadow of injustice to swallow us whole. I would stand up against the brutality, expose the hidden abuses, and ensure that our family, and every innocent soul in our pack, would live free from fear. The looming specter of Blood Moon Prison and the savage punishments that were whispered about were not just relics of a cruel past. They were active threats, reminders that our community's foundations were built on a perilous balance of power and pain. My thoughts raced with plans and contingencies. I envisioned secret meetings with like-minded pack members, a coalition dedicated to rooting out the corruption that festered in the dark corners of our society. The notion of rebellion, of challenging a system so steeped in cruelty, sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. Yet even as the fire of resistance ignited within me, I knew that every step would have to be measured, every decision weighed against the potential cost to my loved ones. In that quiet moment, as the silence of the night pressed in around me, I made a promise, a vow that, regardless of the obstacles, I would forge a path to justice for my family. The price of protection, I realized, was steep. It demanded sacrifice, courage, and an unyielding commitment to the truth. And I was ready to pay that price. Rising from the bench with a newfound sense of resolve, I tightened my grip on the memories of past abuse and the hope for a brighter future. I would no longer be a silent witness to injustice. Instead, I would be its fiercest opponent, a guardian whose love for his mate and children would defy even the darkest of forces. With the echoes of my childhood's pain fueling my determination, I set off into the night, ready to confront the lurking dangers and to protect the ones I cherished from the relentless cruelty that threatened to tear our pack apart. The night. Air was unusually still when the unthinkable happened, a moment that shattered our fragile semblance of safety. I had barely returned home from my secret meeting with a few trusted pack members when a frantic commotion erupted at the door. Heart froze as I heard the panicked shouts echo through the corridors. In a split second, the unthinkable became reality. Ilana, my little angel, had been taken. I bolted from the room, my pulse pounding like a war drum in my ears. Every step I took toward the source of the disturbance felt heavy with dread and disbelief. The warm glow of our home was replaced by a cold, piercing darkness, and the familiar sounds of our family's laughter were replaced by desperate cries and frantic footsteps. As I reached the central hall, I saw chaos unfurl before my eyes. Pack members, usually so composed and united, were now caught in a frantic frenzy of panic and fear. "Where is she?" someone shouted, and the sound of distress rippled through the room like a tidal wave. I pushed past the gathering crowd, my mind a whirlwind of memories and emotions. Every moment I had ever spent protecting her, every whispered promise of safety, now hanging by a thread. The image of her innocent face, those luminous blue eyes that held the weight of untold stories, surged through me like a relentless tide. I couldn't lose her. Not now. Not ever. Frantic urgency fueled my every movement. I ordered the guards to lock down the premises and send out trackers to scour every corner of our territory. The pack's elders, who had long maintained a facade of calm authority, now bore the unmistakable marks of desperation. Even those who normally wore stoic expressions were overcome with anxiety, their voices trembling as they called for a swift, decisive response. In the midst of the chaos, I felt the raw, gnawing fear of losing not just a child, but the embodiment of hope for our future, a hope that had grown from the tender moments of shared laughter and gentle kisses. I rushed outside into the cool, unforgiving night. The sky, a deep canvas of midnight blue, offered little solace as I scanned the horizon, my eyes straining against the darkness for any sign of her. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat. Every rustle in the underbrush sent my heart racing. The pack's trackers joined me, their movements swift and determined as they fanned out in search of any clue. A discarded toy, a stray piece of clothing, even a faint trace of her scent. Time lost. Its meaning as the desperate search stretched on. I recalled every precious moment we had shared, every quiet, gentle whisper of our bond, and the fear of that moment being ripped away from me drove me onward. My mind was a chaotic storm of recollections, her laughter echoing in the halls, the softness of her touch, the tender connection we had forged in the early light of morning. Each memory was a reminder of what was at stake, intensifying my determination to bring her back safely. The emotional toll was evident in every weary face that I encountered on my frantic quest. Fathers clutched their children a little tighter, mothers wept quietly in corners, and even the eldest warriors had their guarded expressions replaced with palpable worry. In the midst of this shared terror, I saw the unbreakable unity of our pack, a fierce, collective love that propelled us forward despite the uncertainty. Every minute that passed felt like an eternity, each second stretching into an aching void of anticipation and dread. My own thoughts were a barrage of what-ifs. What if I fail her? What if she never returns? What if the darkness that had once threatened our home had now claimed the light in her eyes? The fear was nearly paralyzing, yet I pushed on, driven by an unyielding resolve to defy the nightmare that had invaded our lives. In a quiet moment, as I paused near the edge of our territory, I could almost feel her presence. A faint, desperate whisper on the wind, a memory of laughter in the distance. The thought ignited a spark within me, a renewed sense of urgency to search every corner of our domain. I clenched my fists, the resolve in my heart growing stronger with every heartbeat, as I vowed that I would leave no stone unturned until she was found. Deep in the shadows of that terrifying night, the silence between frantic shouts and hurried footsteps became a canvas for my determination. I could sense that this abduction was not a random act of cruelty, but a sinister maneuver, a prelude to a larger scheme that threatened not only our family, but the very soul of our pack. With every step, the weight of that possibility pressed down on me, amplifying my fury and sorrow in equal measure. At last, as the search began to extend into the cold darkness of the woods, I caught a fleeting scent, a familiar, bittersweet fragrance that sent a jolt of hope through my veins. My heart pounded as I signaled for the trackers to converge on the source. I knew that each moment we hesitated could mean the difference between life and a fate too terrible to imagine. The night was now a battleground, and I, along with every member of our pack, was ready to wage war against the looming threat of injustice. In that desperate, heart-wrenching night, as the chaos of the pack swirled around me, my soul burned with the fierce determination to rescue my little angel and restore the fragile balance of our world. Every cry, every whispered prayer in the darkness was a promise that no matter the cost, I would never let our family, our love, be torn apart. And so, with hope and raw determination fueling every step, I plunged deeper into the night, ready to face the dark unknown in a desperate search for the light of her presence. The world inside that cold, dark room was a prison of torment, a place where time stretched into a relentless, painful eternity. I woke to the harsh reality of captivity, the dim light revealing nothing but rough, unyielding walls and the oppressive scent of damp stone. Bound by coarse ropes that bit into my wrists, I struggled against the restraints, each movement a jarring reminder of my powerlessness. The air was heavy with the stench of neglect and cruelty, and every breath I took was laced with the bitter tang of fear. I couldn't see much in the darkness, but I could hear the muffled sounds of footsteps and the low, cruel murmur of voices that spoke of disdain and satisfaction at the suffering they were inflicting. My captor, a towering figure marked by scars and tattoos that twisted his skin into grotesque patterns, circled me like a predator, his eyes glinting with cold, remorseless intent. Every word he spat was a venomous decree. I was nothing, a broken soul meant to be crushed. Yet, even as his threats washed over me, a flicker of defiance burned deep within. I refused to let his cruelty extinguish the ember of hope that remained inside me. The days, or perhaps hours, for time lost all meaning in that dismal cell, were a blur of agony and humiliation. I was subjected to harsh punishments that left my body bruised and battered, each blow a searing testament to their cruelty. The physical pain was immense, a constant reminder of the torment being wrought upon me. But it was the emotional abuse that cut deepest. Every insult, every demeaning command was designed to break my spirit, to force me into submission. I gritted my teeth and closed my eyes, fighting to preserve the remnants of my dignity. In the solitude of my torment, memories of my past surged unbidden. The tender moments with my mate, the laughter of our children, and the gentle warmth of home. These recollections, bittersweet as they were, became both my torment and my refuge. They stoked a fierce determination in me, a defiant promise that I would not surrender the future to these monsters. I clung to the thought that if I could survive this ordeal, I would return to them. I would fight with every ounce of strength I possessed to protect my family and bring justice to those who dared to harm me. Yet the ordeal was not without its moments of bone-crushing despair. There were times when the pain, both physical and emotional, threatened to overwhelm me entirely. I could feel the scars of every lash, the cold bite of every restraint, and the suffocating weight of despair pressing down on my chest. In those moments, the darkness seemed absolute, and the thought of never escaping this nightmare nearly broke me. But even then, a spark of resistance, however faint, kept my spirit from collapsing completely. I would stare defiantly into the void, whispering silent vows of vengeance and protection, even as tears blurred my vision. The room itself became a relentless adversary, its walls closing in, its silence punctuated only by the occasional cruel laugh or the scraping sound of a boot against stone. Every sound was a reminder that I was not alone in my suffering, that the forces of cruelty were ever present and ready to strike. The uncertainty of when the next blow would fall, or when another degrading act would be inflicted, made each passing moment a trial by fire. In those long, agonizing hours, I found my thoughts oscillating between pain and determination. I imagined the faces of my loved ones, my mate's gentle smile, our children's bright eyes, and these visions gave me the strength to endure. The memory of their trust in me, the quiet, unspoken promise that I would protect them no matter the cost, became a lifeline in the darkness. It was that promise that transformed each painful moment into a stepping stone toward a future where I could reclaim not only my freedom, but also the safety and love of my family. As the ordeal dragged on, the raw intensity of my suffering began to morph into an unyielding resolve. I resolved that I would not allow this night to be the end of my story. Every mark on my body, every shudder of pain, only fueled my determination to break free from these chains and bring light back into the lives of those I cherished. I clung to the hope that somewhere beyond these oppressive walls, my family was waiting, a promise of reunion that lent purpose to every desperate breath. In that torturous cell, surrounded by darkness and cruelty, I reached a silent, agonizing truth. The cost of protection is immeasurable, but it is a price I am willing to pay. My defiance, born out of pain and nurtured by love, would be my weapon against the forces that sought to crush me. With each passing moment, the urgency of my plight grew, the need to escape and fight for my family becoming an ever-mounting beacon of hope. And so, as I lay there, every sense honed to the pain, and every heartbeat a drum of relentless determination, I vowed that I would endure, that I would survive this nightmare. The torment might bend my body, but it would never break my spirit. I was not just a victim of cruelty, I was a warrior, and this ordeal was the crucible in which I would forge a future where my loved ones would always be safe. A sudden, blinding flash of light shattered the darkness of my captivity, and in that instant, everything changed. The oppressive gloom that had defined my cell gave way to a whirlwind of sound and movement, a rescue orchestrated with a precision that seemed almost divine. The door burst open with a resounding crash, and figures clad in the colors of our pack surged in, their faces set in determined expressions. I barely had time to register the commotion before I was overwhelmed by the force of rescuers lifting me from my cell. Their voices, urgent yet filled with relief, melded into a single, powerful chant of liberation. I felt a jolt as I was carried out of that nightmare, every bruise and mark on my body a testament to the cruelty I had endured. The darkness that had once seemed impenetrable was now receding, replaced by the promise of dawn. In the chaos, I could sense my heart pounding not only with residual pain, but with a spark of hope, an unyielding glimmer that whispered of freedom and renewal. That spark, as fragile as it was powerful, set the stage for a transformation I could scarcely imagine. The world blurred around me as I lost consciousness once more, the tumult of rescue fading into a deep, encompassing black. When I finally awoke, it was to the soft beeping of machines and the gentle hum of voices that spoke a language of care and healing. I opened my eyes slowly, greeted by a bright, sterile light and the sight of a hospital room that seemed to promise safety after a long and harrowing journey. My limbs were heavy, and my body ached with the raw pain of days lost in torment. But in that quiet, clinical sanctuary, I felt the first stirrings of relief. I tried to move, my senses gradually reawakening to the soft rustle of sheets and the comforting murmur of a nurse checking my vitals. The room was calm, adorned with simple, soothing decor, a few potted plants that breathed life into the sterile space, and photographs on the wall that hinted at family and togetherness. In that moment, I was overwhelmed by a bittersweet mix of gratitude and sorrow. The darkness that had once confined me was finally behind me, yet the scars of my ordeal whispered silently of what I had endured. As my eyes adjusted, I saw familiar faces gathered at the doorway. Their expressions were a blend of joy, relief, and unspoken anguish. My mate, whose presence had been the cornerstone of my hope during the long, dark hours, stepped forward with tears glistening in her eyes. She reached out and took my hand, her touch gentle yet firm, as if to anchor me to this newfound reality. "You're back," she whispered, her voice trembling with emotion. "We thought we'd lost you forever." The weight of her words, laden with silent promises of healing and protection, flooded my heart with a profound sense of reunion. In the corridor outside my room, our children, once so innocent and joyful, now wore expressions of cautious hope. They edged closer, their eyes wide with a mixture of disbelief and joy. The reunion was almost too perfect. A family, fractured by tragedy and separated by cruel fate, now coming together in a quiet, tender moment. There were no grand speeches, no declarations of victory. It was a silent, powerful acknowledgement that we had all endured, and that now, in the soft glow of recovery, we would begin to mend. I listened as the murmurs of relief filled the room, whispers of thanks and promises of a future free from the shadows of past cruelty. Every heartbeat was a testament to survival, every breath a promise that the suffering I had endured would not be in vain. My mate's gentle squeeze of my hand, her eyes never leaving mine, spoke volumes. A promise of unwavering support, of a love that would heal even the deepest wounds. In that hospital room, every tear, every smile, was a silent vow that our family would be whole once more. The recovery process, though slow and fraught with the lingering pain of old scars, began to weave a tapestry of hope around us. I could sense the quiet determination in the voices of the pack members outside. Whispers of unity, of a renewed commitment to protect and nurture one another. The ordeal had left us all battered, but it had also forged a stronger bond among us, an unspoken understanding that our strength lay not only in our resilience, but in our capacity for love. As I lay there, feeling the steady rhythm of my heartbeat and the gentle reassurance of my loved ones around me, a quiet resolve took root within my soul. The torturous nights of captivity had given way to a glimmer of hope, a promise that, no matter the darkness we had faced, there was always a way back to the light. My body would heal, and with it, so would my spirit. I vowed that I would never forget the pain I had endured, for it would serve as a reminder of the cost of neglect and cruelty. Yet I also vowed to channel that pain into a relentless pursuit of justice and protection for my family. In that bittersweet moment of reunion, I realized that every scar, every tear, was a step toward a future where our family's bond would be unbreakable. The silent promises of healing echoed in the gentle hum of the machines, in the soft smiles of my mate, and in the hopeful eyes of our children. And as I embraced the promise of a new day, I carried with me the certainty that no matter how dark the path, there would always be a glimmer of hope lighting the way back home. That evening, as the hospital corridors began to quiet and the echoes of our reunion faded into tender whispers, an otherworldly stillness fell over the pack headquarters. I had barely recovered from the ordeal when a strange ethereal presence seemed to drift into the room, a presence that felt both ancient and intimately familiar. In the dim light, a figure emerged, almost like a shimmering apparition, and I knew instinctively that I was witnessing something extraordinary. There, framed by the soft glow of moonlight that spilled through the window, stood the moon goddess. Her appearance was surreal, an enchantment brought to life. She was clad in a flowing gown of silver and midnight blue, the fabric seeming to ripple like liquid starlight with every graceful movement. Her hair cascaded in luminous waves down her back, catching the light and reflecting it in a dazzling array of colors. Her eyes, deep and knowing, sparkled with the wisdom of countless eons. In that quiet, almost sacred moment, time itself appeared to hold its breath as she regarded me with a serene, almost sorrowful smile. The moon goddess moved closer, her presence infusing the room with an aura of mystery and calm. In a voice that was both melodic and timeless, she spoke of the mate bond, a connection so profound it defied ordinary understanding. You and your mate are not merely bound by love, she intoned softly, but by a sacred destiny, a cosmic thread that ties your souls together and weaves the fabric of your future. Her words resonated deep within me, stirring memories of whispered promises and quiet, unspoken connections that had defined our lives since childhood. She explained that the mate bond was more than a personal connection. It was a rare gift granted by the cosmos, a divine endowment that allowed those who shared it to communicate beyond words through the mystical art of mind-linking. In your union, she continued, her gaze piercing yet kind, there lies a power that transcends the ordinary, a power to feel each other's joys and sorrows as if they were your own. This gift is a beacon, illuminating your path and guiding your steps even when you are apart. As she spoke, I felt a gentle warmth spread through me, as if her words were seeping into my very soul, affirming the sacred promise that had always bound me to my mate. Her fingers traced delicate patterns in the air, and as she did, faint markings shimmered into view on my skin, arcane symbols that glowed with a soft, silvery light. These markings, she explained, were the visible manifestations of the mate bond. They were both a blessing and a responsibility, a constant reminder that our union was written in the stars. These symbols, she murmured, bind you together, not only in this life, but across the endless tapestry of time. They are the seal of your destiny and the key to unlocking extraordinary powers that will one day be revealed in your children. Her words sent a shiver of both wonder and apprehension down my spine. I recalled the quiet moments when, through our mind link, my mate and I had shared unspoken feelings and intuitive insights, a connection that now seemed imbued with even deeper significance. The moon goddess hinted that our rare gift of mind linking was not an isolated phenomenon. It was part of a grand cosmic design, one that had shaped the destinies of countless souls before us. Your children, she whispered, will inherit not only your strength and love, but also the extraordinary powers of your bond. They are destined to be leaders, warriors of both light and shadow, the future saviors of your kind in times of great turmoil. Her words painted vivid images in my mind, a future fraught with epic battles and celestial wars, where the very fate of our pack and perhaps the world would hinge on the extraordinary abilities passed down through our mate bond. The thought filled me with both awe and a burgeoning sense of responsibility. I realized that our union was not only a source of personal strength, but also a beacon for the generations to come, a promise of hope amid the looming darkness of future conflicts. As the moon goddess slowly began to fade into the silvery light of the moon, her final words lingered like a gentle caress upon my heart. Remember, she intoned softly, your bond is a divine miracle, a connection that will guide you through even the darkest nights. Embrace it, nurture it, and let it be the light that leads you to your destiny. With that, she vanished as silently as she had appeared, leaving behind a profound sense of wonder and an unspoken promise of future revelations. In the wake of her departure, I stood there in a state of awe and introspection. The mystical encounter had stirred something deep within me, a renewed belief in the power of destiny and the sacred nature of the mate bond. The markings on my skin glowed softly, a constant reminder of the divine connection that now linked me to my mate and, by extension, to the future of our family. The room, now bathed in the soft luminescence of the moon, felt charged with possibility. Every quiet corner of our sanctuary seemed to whisper of adventures yet to come, of battles that would be fought, and of a legacy that would be forged by the extraordinary powers of our union. With the moon goddess's words echoing in my mind, I knew that the road ahead would be filled with both wonder and challenge, but also that the strength of our bond would be the guiding light through every trial, every triumph, and every mystery yet to unfold. In the weeks that followed our harrowing ordeal, our pack began to emerge from the darkness into a fragile light. The days grew gentler, as if the very air around us had softened, carrying the whispers of healing and the promise of renewed bonds. Our home, once a battleground of heartache and chaos, transformed into a sanctuary where every sunrise was a small miracle, and each smile held the hope of a better tomorrow. Every morning, the once distant laughter of our children filled the house with a comforting melody. I watched as they bounded through the corridors, their energy a delightful reminder that life continued despite past horrors. My mate and I worked tirelessly to rebuild not only our physical space, but also the trust and warmth that had been battered by the cruel winds of fate. We rearranged the furniture, painted the walls in soft, inviting hues, and planted a small garden outside where wildflowers and herbs now grew, each bloom a symbol of our collective resilience. One crisp morning, as golden sunlight filtered through our window, I found myself in the kitchen preparing breakfast. The aroma of freshly baked bread and simmering herbs blended with the soft chatter of my children, whose voices echoed with newfound joy and curiosity. My mate, ever the gentle force of nature, floated in and wrapped her arms around me from behind, murmuring softly, "We're healing, day by day, and our family is becoming stronger than ever." Her words, laced with both humor and hope, sent a ripple of warmth through me. We shared a light-hearted laugh over the memory of our earlier, more chaotic days, when disagreements over bedtime felt like monumental battles, and found solace in the simplicity of a shared cup of tea. During one particularly delightful afternoon, as the children played a spirited game of tag in the garden, I noticed the subtle transformation in our little one who had once carried the weight of silent sorrow. She now laughed freely, her eyes bright with mischief as she darted between sunlit patches and blossoming roses. I couldn't help but marvel at how a simple act, a playful chase with her siblings, could mend a heart so deeply wounded. In that, moment, the mundane miracle of laughter, became a testament to our renewed bond, a promise that even the smallest joys could outweigh the remnants of past pain. The healing, however, was not instantaneous. There were moments when shadows from our turbulent past would creep into our quiet evenings, a lingering question in a hushed conversation, or a brief flash of sorrow in a parent's eyes. Yet these moments, rather than tearing us apart, only strengthened our commitment to one another. Together, we began to hold family meetings, gentle gatherings around the dinner table where every voice was heard and every fear was met with compassion. We spoke of our dreams, our regrets, and our unwavering hope for the future. With every conversation, trust grew anew, stitching together the torn fabric of our collective heart. Humor, too, found its way back into our lives. I vividly recall an evening when, during a lively family dinner, my youngest attempted to serve dessert to everyone, only to declare in a giggle, "I'm the new chef, and I'm making magic pudding." The absurdity of the statement, combined with the sight of little hands enthusiastically mixing ingredients, had the whole table bursting into laughter. Even the elders, who had once worn stoic expressions in the face of hardship, couldn't help but join in. In that shared moment of levity, it was as if the burdens of the past had momentarily lifted, replaced by the simple, enduring joy of being. Together, our pack's leaders also took steps to mend the fractures that had threatened our unity. New protocols were introduced to ensure that every member, no matter how young or vulnerable, would be safeguarded against the cruelty of the past. These changes were met with cautious optimism. While some remained wary, the collective heartbeat of our community began to pulse with the promise of reform and resilience. It was a slow process. Each day, each small victory, a stepping stone toward a more compassionate future. In quieter moments, my mate and I would retreat to our private space, where we would reflect on the journey we had endured. We often reminisced about the turbulent nights that had once seemed insurmountable, acknowledging the pain while celebrating the love that had carried us through. "We've come a long way," she would say, her eyes soft and tender. "Every scar is a reminder of our strength, and every laugh is a victory over the darkness." Her words, simple yet profound, served as a constant reminder that the price of healing was not measured in sacrifices alone, but in the shared moments of joy and the silent promises we made to protect one another. And so, in the gentle embrace of each new day, our family continued to rebuild and renew itself. We embraced the everyday miracles, the warmth of a shared meal, the laughter echoing in the garden, the quiet strength of a kind word, and in doing so, we forged bonds that were unbreakable. Our journey was far from over, and the scars of the past would forever whisper their truths. But together, united by love, humor, and an unwavering commitment to one another, we found the courage to face each new dawn. Each sunrise was a promise that no matter how hard the night had been, hope would always prevail, and our family's bond would be the light that guided us home. The day of the grand ceremony dawned with an almost palpable electricity in the air, a heady mix of anticipation, reverence, and a hint of anxiety that rippled through every corner of our pack's stronghold. Today was not merely a celebration, it was a moment that would forever alter our destinies, marking the union of Alpha and Luna in a ceremony as ancient as the stars. The long-anticipated event had been whispered about for months, and now, as the soft light of early morning bathed the grounds in a gentle glow, the stage was set for a ritual that promised both beauty and unexpected revelations. Family members, friends, and trusted allies gathered in a clearing beneath a towering oak, its sprawling branches forming a natural canopy that seemed to bless the occasion. The clearing was adorned with garlands of wildflowers and twinkling lanterns, their warm light dancing upon the faces of those assembled. The atmosphere was both festive and solemn, a delicate balance between celebration and the weight of profound commitment. Every heartbeat seemed to echo with the ancient rhythm of our traditions, each pulse a testament to the enduring power of love and unity. I stood at the center of the clearing, my heart a wild symphony of nerves and excitement. Dressed in ceremonial garb that honored our heritage, I could feel the steady gaze of the pack upon me. Across from me, my mate, my Luna, waited with eyes that shone like twin moons, reflecting both vulnerability and unwavering strength. In that moment, as I took in her presence, the world around us seemed to fade into insignificance, leaving only the bond that had brought us together through countless trials and miracles. The ceremony began with soft, melodic chants in our native tongue, a language as old as time itself, resonating through the clearing. The elders, draped in robes of deep midnight and silver, stepped forward to recite the ancient vows that had been passed down through generations. Their voices, steady and rich with emotion, recounted the sacred nature of the mate bond, a connection, forged in the cosmos, destined to withstand the tempests of life. As the words washed over me, I felt a swell of pride and a surge of responsibility. I was not merely uniting with my beloved. I was pledging to be the guardian of a legacy that reached far beyond our own lives. When it came time for our vows, a hush fell over the assembly. With trembling hands, I reached for the parchment containing our vows, words I had spent sleepless nights perfecting, each phrase a reflection of my soul. I spoke of our journey, the struggles, the rescues, the moments of defiant joy that had defined us. My Luna, I began, my voice catching on the first syllable. From the moment our souls intertwined, I knew that our bond was written in the stars. I promised to protect you and our future, to cherish every moment, and to stand as a beacon of hope even in the darkest hours. My words were met with a ripple of murmurs from the crowd, and I saw tears glisten in the eyes of those who had borne witness to our struggles. Then came the unexpected twist. Just as I finished, my mate's eyes filled with both mischief and sorrow. In a voice soft yet resolute, she revealed a secret that had weighed on her heart for months. "My love," she said, her tone trembling with emotion, "there is something you must know. Before we came together, I was promised protection by a rival pack, an assurance that if I ever chose a different path, I would be kept safe in a distant haven. But my heart, my destiny, belonged with you. Today, I renounce that promise and affirm our bond, not as a shadow of past fears, but as a luminous future we create together." The revelation struck the assembly with a mix of shock and awe, adding layers of complexity to our vows and heightening the emotional energy of the ceremony. It was a heartfelt promise to leave behind old allegiances and embrace a future solely defined by the love and commitment we shared. As our vows echoed across the clearing, another symbolic ritual unfolded. The elders brought forth two ancient, intricately carved rings, their designs echoing the lunar cycles and the eternal dance of light and shadow. One ring, resplendent with a shimmering gem, was placed on my finger, and in that moment, I felt the weight of destiny settle upon me, a silent acknowledgement that I now carried the legacy of our ancestors. My mate's ring, delicate yet resolute, was slid onto her finger, and as it touched her skin, a faint glow seemed to emanate from the markings that adorned us both, a physical testament to the divine mate bond. The intensity of the moment was almost overwhelming. I could feel the collective heartbeat of our pack, the steady rhythm of hope and determination as we stood together under the ancient oak. Every face shone with tears, laughter, and the profound realization that our union was not merely a personal commitment, but a promise to safeguard the future. The ceremony had transcended the boundaries of a wedding. It was a celebration of destiny, a defiant stand against the darkness that had threatened to tear us apart. As the final chants faded and the elders stepped back, the clearing erupted in a chorus of approval and joy. Our family, united by love and bound by ancient magic, celebrated the dawn of a new era. In that charged, euphoric moment, I embraced my mate tightly, our hearts beating in unison as we looked forward to the future with a shared sense of purpose and courage. Every promise made, every secret revealed, had set the stage for the extraordinary journey that lay ahead. A journey of healing, of battles yet to come, and of a love so fierce that it could light the way through even the deepest shadows. In the wake of the grand ceremony, a serene calm settled over our pack. A calm that whispered of new beginnings and the promise of brighter days. The ancient oak, still standing proudly in the clearing, now bore witness to our union and the stirring hope that radiated from every corner of our community. As the last echoes of the ancient chants faded into the soft murmur of the evening, my mate and I, surrounded by our family and kin, stepped forward into a future that felt both thrilling and tenderly uncertain. The ceremony had been more than a formal union. It had been a transformative rite that merged our past struggles with the luminous promise of tomorrow. In its aftermath, I found myself reflecting on the long, arduous journey that had brought us here. Every battle fought, every tear shed, had served as a lesson in resilience, sacrifice, and the power of unwavering love. I recalled the dark nights of captivity, the heart-wrenching fear of losing those I cherished, and even the bittersweet moments of defiance that had fueled my determination. Each memory, no matter how painful, had been a stepping stone leading to this very moment, a moment where hope and renewal reigned supreme. Back at our home, the atmosphere was imbued with a gentle energy that was both familiar and newly invigorated. The pack's communal spaces, once shadowed by tension and whispered anxieties, now shimmered with laughter, the clink of glasses, and soft, heartfelt conversations. Our children played in the garden, their voices intermingling with the rustle of leaves and the gentle hum of nature. Every smile, every shared joke, was a testament to the healing that had taken root in our hearts. It was as if the entire pack was breathing a collective sigh of relief, eager to embrace the promise of a future unburdened by past miseries. My mate and I often found solace in quiet moments together. In the soft glow of twilight, as we sat side by side on the veranda, we would recount our journey in hushed, reverent tones. "Remember when it all seemed so hopeless?" she would say, her eyes reflecting both sorrow and the indomitable spirit that had seen us through the darkest nights. I would squeeze her hand in silent agreement, grateful for the deep connection that had only grown stronger with every trial we had faced. We spoke of our dreams, not just for ourselves, but for the children who represented the future of our pack. Each word was laced with promise, a vow that no matter what challenges lay ahead, our bond would remain an unyielding beacon of hope. The elders, too, had taken this time to reflect on the legacy of our pack. In discreet meetings held beneath the ancient trees, they discussed the future with a mix of wisdom and cautious optimism. Plans were laid out for reform, new systems of support, enhanced protections for the vulnerable, and a renewed commitment to justice and compassion. The scars of past injustices were not forgotten, but they had become the fuel for a transformative change that promised to uplift every member of our community. As the days turned into weeks, a sense of vibrant possibility filled our lives. I would often walk through the garden, the soft petals of blooming flowers brushing against my fingertips, and feel the quiet pulse of a world reborn. Every breeze, every chirping bird, reminded me that the hardships of yesterday had paved the way for today's miracles. I became acutely aware that our union was not just a personal triumph, but the foundation of a legacy that would shape generations. Our children, with their bright eyes and fearless hearts, would inherit not only the strength of our bond, but also the extraordinary powers that were whispered about in ancient lore, a destiny that promised both greatness and responsibility. In the midst of this newfound harmony, there was a subtle undercurrent of mystery, a quiet curiosity about the future adventures that awaited our pack. Whispers of ancient prophecies and cosmic destinies mingled with everyday tales of laughter and play, hinting at epic battles and celestial wonders that lay on the horizon. It was as though the very fabric of our existence was woven with threads of destiny, each one leading to unforeseen challenges and miraculous triumphs. And in that knowledge, I felt both a thrill and a deep, abiding responsibility. As night fell on a day filled with gentle hope and reflective peace, I stood at the edge of our garden, gazing at the starlit sky. The constellations above seemed to map out our future, intricate patterns of destiny that promised new beginnings, the birth of extraordinary children, and the enduring strength of love. My heart swelled with gratitude and anticipation. Every challenge we had overcome had led us to this moment of radiant possibility. The scars of our past, though still visible in the quiet recesses of our memories, now shone as badges of honor, reminders that we had survived, learned, and grown stronger. In that final transcendent moment, I whispered a silent vow to the universe that our journey, our struggles, and our triumphs would be the seeds of a future where love, justice, and resilience reigned supreme. The road ahead was uncertain, but it was one we would travel together, united by an unbreakable bond, fueled by hope, and driven by the promise of extraordinary adventures yet to come. And so, as the night wrapped our home in its gentle embrace, the echoes of our laughter, the whispered dreams of our children, and the silent vows of our family merged into a single, luminous promise. A promise of new beginnings and a future where every challenge would be met with unwavering courage and boundless love.